Okay, YouTube family. Good to see you all. I'm doing something a little bit different today. I'm recording this on my desktop at home. Um, just makes sense to do it. And I am at home trying to relax, trying to slow down a little bit. Things have been extremely busy. If you watch the channel, you know that. So first of all, let me kind of bring you up to speed. The recent trip was amazing. When I got to, of course, being with my girls was, I mean, I can't say enough things about how amazing that was for me, um, and how amazing it was for them. We had a wonderful time together. So we took our time heading up to DC. I sent constant updates on Facebook and Instagram and all the little stops that we made along the way. When we got to DC, we were not supposed to spend the night there. We're supposed to continue on to Chicago. Now, here's the thing. This actually started out as a business trip that I decided to turn into a family vacation with the girls. So while I was in the hospital, um, while I was in the hospital, a customer accepted one of my bids to move an Italian leather couch from Washington, D.C. to Chicago. So, of course, I reached out to him and said, listen, I can't do this job because I'm in the hospital. And he asked, what was wrong. And I said, well, I don't know if you mind all the gory details. At this point, I had an embolism in my left lung, and I just found out that I had stage 4 cancer. So I shared that with him. Now it's funny because he said, oh, you can tell me anything because I'm an undertaker, which I thought was very, very funny, that I would be talking to an undertaker. I'm like, hey, sure. So I told him, and we developed a friendship just in that time. Now I told him not, and I gave him a really good price for this move because I had planned to stack trips. So in other words, it wouldn't be just this couch going from DC to Chicago, which had become almost like a regular route of mine. This would be extra money on top of moving a pet from. So anyway, so that's why I gave him such a good price for it. But he, so I told him I'll find you another shipper, and I did the legwork. I found someone else, even more experienced than me, and I passed the job on to that shipper. Long story short, that shipper completely dropped the ball. They didn't communicate well at all, and not only that, that shipper got two very bad reviews after I contacted them about this job. And I said, you know what? And by the way, the customer's name is Adam. Adam and Kat, wonderful, wonderful people. So I reached out to Adam. And I said, listen, Adam, I apologize. The shipper dropped the ball. I don't feel comfortable letting the shipper do the job. And he said, you know what? Actually, I'd rather you do it if you can. I know you're dealing with a lot, but just from getting to know you, I would really like to meet you in person. So I was actually a little disappointed that you were giving it to someone, but I understood. I said, well, you know what? I get out of the hospital next week. Give me a couple days to get a couple things going with my oncologist, stuff like that. And if you're willing to wait a couple weeks, I will bring your couch to you. And he was absolutely on board with that, which I thought was amazing because by the time I delivered the couch, it'd been a month since he booked this trip. So his patience and understanding was just incredible. So I said, okay, well, let me turn this into a vacation. Got my girls. We took our time getting to DC. Had a wonderful trip along the way. Got to DC. Met with my friend Charmaine. Shout out to Charmaine, who made the trip in DC, the time in DC, incredible. She acted as our personal tour guide. Took me and my girls to all the major monuments. Pointed out all the different museums. And you can't do DC in one day. It's impossible. Just the museums alone. We didn't get to go to any museums, just the monuments. The major, we didn't get to see all the monuments, just the major ones. But I would love to go back to DC and this time hit the different museums, especially the Smithsonian, a couple others. There's a spy museum in DC. Now, that one's not free. And here's the thing about DC, all the museums that are government museums are all free. The Smithsonian, free. The Air and Space, free. All the African American History Museum, free. They're all free. The only museums you pay for are like private museums, like the Spy Museum, which looks amazing from the outside, and the Museum of the Bible, which is supposed to have a full-size version of Noah's Ark inside. So yeah, so there's that. So we ended up spending the night in DC. Stayed at a really nice hotel that was pet friendly. We got it at an amazing price for the night, and then two more friends came to see me. Um, my dear sister in Christ came to see me. I'm not gonna mention her name, but she knows who she is. And but she came to see me, came to see the kids, and we had a wonderful time. And thank you so much for coming. I appreciate that so much. And my other friend Cordinia came to see me. Cordinia is someone I've known for many, many, many years. We were part of the same artist community online, but we'd never met before. And she lives in DC. So she said, "You know what? You were in DC last month. Don't know when you're coming through again." So she went out of her way, came to see me, and again, just had a wonderful time. She met my daughters. So to get to see three very dear friends who live in the area, um, that was something I didn't expect, and it was so great to actually spend time in person with three people that I really, really care very much about. That was just amazing. So the next day, picked up the couch, did a little bit more sightseeing downtown DC. In fact, the hotel I was at, shoot, I forget the name, but it was right across the street from the Washington Nationals baseball stadium. Amazingly enough, I mean, I was literally across the street from the baseball stadium, which was, I have this thing about taking pictures of stadiums when I go on trips, just a little thing of mine. So that was cool to actually be staying across the street from a stadium. That was really cool. Did the river walk. Very, very nice. So we got on the road and headed up to Chicago. And that was kind of a long drive. We stopped at a state park along the way. Um, but, did the drive nice and easy. Got to Chicago the next morning, or next day around noon, and then spent time with Adam and Kat. And they could not have been more hospitable. Kat is a chef. She cooked homemade pizza for us in her. She has a pizza oven in her home. Oh, so good, so good. We spent hours there, and I now have friends in Chicago. They told me I'm welcome anytime. They'd love to see me back, and I'd love to get back to Chicago. And if I do, well, I'll be staying with Adam and Kat. So that was really cool. And then was the long drive home. And not gonna lie, that was a little bit rough because I had to get the kids had already missed a day of school, and I practically practically did the trip almost in one. I mean, it's about 18 hours. I did it in two hops. I think I did about like 6 hours, then rested, and then did 12 hours straight, um, which definitely was pushing it. But we got the girls home, and they did not miss a second day of school, which was great. So that was that trip. It was super exciting, super enjoyable, but it did leave me kind of tired. And I came back to doctor's appointments, one after another. It's been doctors all week. Today I got an MRI of my brain, which I'm extremely excited about that because there've been some incidents in the past, some neurological incidents that I never got to follow up on. The most recent was about 6 or 7 years ago. Basically, like mini strokes, kind of a thing, where my brain just reset itself. Like in the middle of a conversation, just got knocked out. So they'll be able to see. There's a history of all that in my brain. Well, in the frontal cortex, I think, is where they check for a history of neurological. So it's amazing how the brain like keeps a record of those things. And for those of you who watch the channel, if you remember the promo episode, right, that short little promo video, and I talked about, um, something weird that happened in DC where I literally lost time. I wasn't joking about that. That actually happened. And so, but unlike the three incidents before, this would have, which happened while I was awake, whatever happened in DC happened probably while I was asleep, but I definitely lost some time. And that might have actually been like a mini stroke. So that will all be revealed in the results of the brain scan, the MRI that we did today. So this weekend it's just rest and relaxation. Monday I'm getting CAT scans and PET scans of my entire body, again just to get things ready. So I may start chemo as early as Thursday or not. It depends. I have two separate oncology teams that are working with me. And so I have, it's not just two opinions. I have two separate teams, both of them working very, very hard to get me the help, the treatment that I need. So the team A is working hard to get me into these clinical trials. I think I mentioned that, but it looks like those trials are not ready and time is of the essence. So we may forego those trials, which means if I go with team A, it's going to be the standard course of treatment, which would be chemo plus immunotherapy. Okay. And if possible, I'd like to avoid chemo. Now, beggars can't be choosers. Okay. And of course, someone has to pay for all this. So, again, there's a lot of decisions to be made. Now, the cool thing is, I speak to all my doctors, nurses, medical professionals. I speak their language. I don't allow them to dumb anything down for me. I can't afford to because I am ultimately responsible for my health. So I make all the decisions. I'm definitely in the driver's seat. They understand that. They appreciate that, and they appreciate that they can speak to me openly. I'll give you an example. So oncologist B, team B, first time we met was in his office, and he said, "Okay, please tell me," and I'm going to share this with you too, so that you understand. He says, "Okay, you tell me, Xavier, what you see the situation is. What is your assessment of the situation, so that I know how to talk to you and where to start." And I said, "Okay, this is what I understand. Back in August, I started having my first symptom, which was shortness of breath when I would exert myself. Then around September, October, started to develop a random cough, which I assumed was due to allergens because I live in a place with multiple animals and pets and things like that, secondhand smoke. So I assumed it was that. But other than that, I had no other symptoms. Then in February, I had a pulmonary embolism, which actually ended up saving my life because it got me to the hospital. They saw that my right lung had completely collapsed, filled up with fluid. They removed 2 liters of fluid from my right lung. That fluid tested positive for malignancy. They did a biopsy here at my clavicle of one of my lymph nodes. That also came back positive, confirming a cancer diagnosis. Ultimately, the result of all that is I have a pulmonary embolism in my left lung, which is being treated with ongoing blood thinners, and I have stage 4 lung cancer, which is incurable. So right now, all the medical options basically amount to extension of life and quality of life. That's pretty much it because it's incurable. And I said, "Do I have it right?" And his eyes like opened really wide. He says, "Yeah, that's perfect. I have nothing to add to that." He goes, "Well, let's go right into the treatment then." And so he did, and he did something really really cool that I appreciated. He had this whiteboard, and he started to draw out on the whiteboard the course of treatment, what we're looking for. So here's the deal. Plan A. If so, I had to give him a sample of the fluid from my lungs, which yeah. So I gave him a sample of that fluid, and if it tests positive for certain, if they find certain mutations in that fluid that will qualify me for a drug therapy that targets those mutations. It basically will target just those cancer cells and not touch any healthy cells. That would be ideal. That would be number one. If I don't have those mutations, oh, and by the way, I have, for those that care about this stuff and understand, I have non small cell lung cancer, which is good because that's the less aggressive of the two types of lung cancer. So yeah, so if I don't have those mutations, the next course of action is going to be to target a particular protein. If they find a certain percentage of that protein present, they can do a separate, different drug therapy that essentially kicks my immune system into high gear and targets that protein. That's the protein that the cancer cells kind of piggyback on, and so that would be an excellent course of treatment as well, because again, no chemo, because chemo is like a blanket therapy. It doesn't just attack the cancer cells, it also attacks um, healthy cells. That's why chemo has so many side effects. And if I don't qualify for A or B, then the third course of action would be the standard course of treatment, which is chemo plus immunotherapy. And again, all that would start sometime next week. So I've got a balance between these two teams. And the real difference is how it's going to be paid for, is going to determine kind of which team I. Both teams are pretty much in agreement in terms of the course of action. Both teams have the same objectives. I don't see one as being better than the other. I have full confidence in both oncologists, which is a great feeling to have. That I'm definitely getting the best of care, and but to have the choice of the two. So yeah, so basically the the decision will most likely come to how is this going to be paid for. I've applied for Medicaid. I don't have medical insurance. I've applied for Medicaid. They're trying to fast track that, and they're also looking at other ways of paying for this, which I'm not really at liberty to talk about. But I mean, we're looking at everything, and of course, my dear friend started a GoFundMe because there are so many expenses. I'm not able to work right now. So those of you who have donated to GoFundMe, thank you so much. You have my deepest gratitude. I love you all. Okay, all of you, whether you gave or not, just that you watch this channel, that you're supporting me, um, that you're praying for me. I I'm very grateful for that. And all the people that have given me medical advice, thank you. I appreciate that so much. Unfortunately, a lot of that advice is very conflicting. Now, the good thing is, I started to research cancer therapies 5 years ago when my mom had cancer. Unfortunately, she was too far along by the time I knew about it for any of those treatments to be effective. Even standard treatment like chemo, she ended up taking chemo kind of at the last moment, and it extended her life by maybe 2 weeks. And I was so grateful for those 2 weeks. Um, I needed those 2 weeks, but we weren't able to do more than that. So in my case, it's a little bit different. My health is considered very robust. Okay, you wouldn't know that I'm sick if you saw me. I have a very healthy appetite. My energy level is fairly high. I do find that I'm getting sleepy, not even tired, sleepy. Like I could sleep all day, kind of, sort of. But my days start very early, so maybe that's part of it too. So yeah, so that's pretty much um, my medical situation up to the present. We'll know more Monday after the PET scans and CAT scans, and after the results from the tests come back from the fluid. We already pretty much have a good idea, but treatment is going to start very soon. Once treatment starts, it will definitely limit my ability to travel. So another reason why I was so grateful that I was able to have this vacation with my girls. Okay. Oh, by the way, this I was at the hospital today for the MRI, and I these are hard to take off. I need a pair of scissors to take this off, but I don't want anyone worrying about this. It's fine. And what else? So another thing too, some people have expressed concern about my weight, saying that they could tell from my pictures I'd lost a lot of weight, that they could tell that something was I was sick. No, not at all. I back in June, I had a health scare. Right, I had some numbness in my left hand, and it kind of scared me a little bit because at that point, I was so involved with the campaign because I was managing someone's a candidate's campaign, Donnie Felix, who won, by the way. Very proud of that. And I wasn't riding my bike as much. I wasn't exercising as much. Just focused so much on that campaign, and my blood pressure was really out of control. And I have a long history of hypertension. My blood pressure runs high normally, um, which normally put that in quotes. Okay, but it was very high. So I set as a goal weight of 150 pounds, and I got back to exercising rigorously like I used to. I cut down on my caloric intake, and I increased my caloric burn through bicycling and stuff like that. And I would count the calories. This was very data driven, and so I lost. So I went from 183, and I set as my goal weight 150. I got down to 150 in about 3.5 months. So it was gradual, but I worked for it. It was not, so those of you that were concerned and say, no, no, you were sick. No, please don't take that away from me. That was an accomplishment. I worked hard to lose the weight. And in fact, I got down to 145 pounds. When I realized that, I did a body analysis, right? And I realized that I had also lost some muscle mass because the part of the plan too was to get my body fat percentage down to a certain weight, get my BMI down to a certain level, and get my overall weight down to 150. So when I was down at 145, all the numbers looked great, but I needed to build up muscle mass. So the next step would be to start now doing weight resistance training to build up muscle. Well, we never got to that point because of this whole diagnosis with cancer. So 145 was too low. So this before I found that I had cancer, I decided to bring up my weight up to 150. I got it up to 152 and it was at 152 for. So I have excellent control of my weight. Once I got the diagnosis, I set a higher goal. So I now weigh about 155, 156-ish. Um, and I'm going to get it up to 160 to build kind of a buffer, um, because if I end up going the chemo route, keeping weight is one of the side effects. Losing weight is one of the side effects. So I want to get my weight up in anticipation that I may have to do the chemo. And my weight is steadily going up. So I'm very, very happy with that. And health wise, what else can I tell you guys? I feel great. I really do. I'm going to start riding my bike again. There just hasn't been time to ride the bike um, with work, hospital, doctor stuff. So this weekend I'm going to take it easy. I don't know if I'm going to ride this weekend. Probably not, because I am a bit tired. But I'll probably start just not 10 miles, nothing like that. Just 3-4 miles every couple days, a few times a week, just to get reacclimated to that. And one of the great things is now that I'm at full lung capacity, it's actually much easier for me. I really do feel better now than before the diagnosis. Because I don't know if you guys realize this, but I had been operating, exercise, all these things I was doing, the biking, the campaigning, the working, the long distance trips. I was doing all that with only one lung. My left lung was my only good lung. My right lung had completely collapsed and I didn't even know it. So my body adapted to that, but my lung capacity was operating at almost 100% all the time. So there was no extra capacity. So if I was riding my bike and going up a little overpass to go over the top, I'd be huffing and puffing by the time I got to the top. That was one of the symptoms. And now I understand why. It's because I was only working with only one good lung. So now with the drainage, I now have two lungs. Well, there's the embolism in this lung, but it's a blood clot. It's not like the lung is shot. The lung still works, and with the blood thinners, that blood clot is going to slowly dissolve over time. I'll be on blood thinners for 3 months. We're a month into it, so the embolism is in check. Um, this lung is being drained normally. So, and again, just throwing some facts out there. And if anyone is curious, I'm draining um, approximately 2 liters of fluid from my right lung, which, believe it or not, affects my weight. My weight before and after a drainage is very different. It's different by 3 pounds sometimes, as much as 3 pounds, because that fluid is heavy. So when I draw that fluid, so now I have to actually take my weight after drainage to get an accurate body weight, because I don't want to count that fluid weight as part of my weight, because it's not. It doesn't belong there. So I actually got a weight of 158 a couple days ago, only to realize that 3 or 4 of those pounds, well, maybe 3 pounds of it, was not actually me, but it was fluid from my lungs. Drained that fluid, and my weight went down to mid 150s. So yeah, so that's anyway, that's the update on my current situation. And yeah, other than that, feeling great. I have a lot of confidence in the medical care that I'm getting. Always very, very grateful to all my supporters out there, family, friends, and other people who've just come on board and started to watch the channel. So thank you. Thank you very much. So peace, love, take care of yourself, be healthy, be well, and drink lots of water. Take care. Have a wonderful day.